His message was simple. I'm a fifth grader. I believe new readers should have new books to help them love to read. I've bought books for kindergartners, and I would like to give one to every kindergartner in your school. On November 7th, Paul delivered over 600 brand new books to students in 30 classrooms across Hamilton County. He delivered them to kindergarten students at Calvin Donaldson Elementary, Hardy Elementary, Orchard Knob Elementary, Woodmore Elementary, and Alpine Crest Elementary. Paul organized all the details. He wants kindergarten students in Hamilton County schools to learn to love reading as much as he does. During this week of Thanksgiving, I'm grateful for students like Paul, students with a giving heart. Thank you, Paul, for sharing your love of reading with students across the district. Kindness matters. Thank you for your giving spirit.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody coming today. And Chip Baker, I didn't formally announce you either, but thanks so much, everyone, for coming. We will continue with the rest of the meeting now, and it's time for the citizens' opportunity to address council. Come to the podium and state your name. You have about 3 minutes. Anyone? All right, we'll close that portion of the council meeting. Move on to resolutions. We have 3 resolutions, and the first one, Ron's probably going to want to come up. This is a resolution authorizing additional funds for the contract with CTI Engineering in an amount not to exceed $33,000 due to additional engineering and inspection services for the James Boulevard reconstruction project for the town of Signal Mountain. So Boyd, if you want to just pick up a general idea of what we're looking at.
Yeah, generally, you guys know the issues we ran into with James Boulevard with unsuitable soils, weather, variety of issues that created an extension of the project itself, and additional work in terms of trying to figure out how to address those issues and everything. So during the course of the project, there was work expended that was not within the original scope, and the invoices that you were provided, though not previously submitted, were from that work, and Ron's here to answer any questions or explain to the degree necessary for council.
Thank you, council. I'm Ron Key with CTI Engineers, and basically we budgeted the project based upon I think it was about 6 months of construction and start up and close out, and I think that was adequately budgeted had we had the work proceeded in that timely fashion, but everything just got drug out over a much longer period of time. And unfortunately, it's the way TDOT does it, it includes all the construction administration and contract inspection in one lump sum term. Normally, we would have construction administration and inspection different, but it's all lumped together, and I think it was a very adequate budget, and unfortunately just the conditions and the time were such that it just got drug out.
How does the spreading out of engineering services that are predetermined, what happens in that time when we're waiting for rain that costs us more money?
Well, the rain was costing more money, but during that period, we were trying to find solutions. Remember that originally it started out poor soils. We did quite a bit of investigation to bring someone in to, we found 2 or 3 different ideas and try to achieve the most economical solution for the town, and which we think we did. And then, of course, during that period, there was a lot of the rain, there were times that we were really not up here. We were not doing services for you. It's only expended as the work progressed.
So this has to do more with the mitigation that had to take place for the different soil type that was expected.
That is correct. That's a big part of it. That took longer than the conventional construction as well. I think we budgeted four months of construction. I think that was the correct amount.
So, council have any other questions? And also, does this satisfy staff, Loretta?
If I may just add one thing, in the contract as a whole, there's about $10,000 that remains on the design phase for this project, and we're in the process of doing the paperwork to have that rolled over and credited to this. So about 10,000 of this 33 will be recouped from that.
So it'll really be 23, roughly?
The ballpark.
And this is coming from the general fund? Where's this money coming from?
Yeah, ultimately, from general fund to state street aid to fund the unfunded portion of the project.
Do we hear a motion? Or
So the original contract amount was $60,000.
Yes, sir.
So what's before us now represents really a 50% cost overrun. I'm struggling a little to justify what
That's,
that type of cost overrun.
I think that's close to 50%. It's hard to put that in words, actually, Mr. Lusk. We budgeted about $10,000 per month, and we got up to, I think we put somebody on the project the Monday after Thanksgiving last year. And the next week is when the rain started. And of course, we were not there, the contractor was not there, but then when he started back later in December, we realized that when they took the old pavement up, the rain hit the old base of the road, and it basically liquefied. So we spent a lot of time and effort trying to find means and ways of economically solve the dilemma of trying to reestablish the base and build the road back. So it took a lot of effort to do that. And then when they did start back, it was a little slower process than just putting stone down and putting concrete back on top of it, so that we did have more time, more field time for our inspector up here.
Is there a more, this might sound like a silly question, but I think it needs to be asked. Are there any other options that are less expensive? Is this our only option to move forward with the project, 33,000?
Well, we're now at the end of the project.
To finish the project then?
no, it's
Oh, it's
finished.
done.
The construction.
So we already owe, okay, so it's finished?
It's done.
So this work's been done?
This work's
Yes.
been done.
I'm sorry, I missed that part.
That's okay.
Okay. So
But I'd love for there to be-
$33,000 worth of work was done without consent,
Well,
without,
when we get to the end of projects like this, there's often, you find out that you had to have more of this and less of that and different materials and that. And so there's a reconciling at the end of projects often.
Sure.
But this is engineering services, which makes it, to Bill's point, makes it a little harder because we've already paid the overages for the additional rock that was required in materials. This is engineering services.
Well, we did submit a letter back early on when we realized that we were going to over budget. So,
Right.
but I think Mr. Lusk has a very good point that it's almost 50% more. So that's a little more than just, hey, we have to balance this out, and it was a little bit more than we thought. That's over, it's 60,000, so it's over 50%.
Well,
More.
the original contract amount was 60,000. This would take it to $93,000. I think at this point in time, we've invoiced the town about $87,000. I don't think it will take that full margin to close the project out, but there's still some documents that TDOT requires that we've got to do. And we're waiting on some forms and some documents from the contractor to file those. I don't think we'll hit that max, but we'd like to ask for it just so that there is a cushion there. But we will not, I don't think we will get to that full amount of money. So it went from 60,000 to roughly 87,000 now, and probably hit around 90,000 at the end. But that is engineering time and field time for our inspectors.
We haven't heard a motion yet. I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All right, now we can continue discussion as to whether or not it gets, we approve.
What happens if we don't approve it?
If we don't approve it, they're still gonna try to get us to pay it.
Well, I'll have some very unhappy bosses
Right.
for that, for one thing, but
Because it's the cost. I mean, this is what happens in construction projects, because you get to the end and you have to balance out what it actually costs to
Yeah.
build it, so.
Just asking.
And, no, it's a reasonable question. We're in this situation where we are a citizen council, and we take the advice of staff. That's what they do for a living, and we're here to ask questions about why, and also, how could we have prevented this cost overrun on another project? Could it have been prevented?
pardon me, Mayor.
Could this cost overrun, I think it's a fair question. How could we, or perhaps staff, prevented this cost overrun on this project? Would it have been possible?
That would have been very difficult, just due to the nature and the conditions with the project.
I mean, it was weather induced, right?
It was weather induced.
So I guess
Had-
if
had
we
we
could
had-
control rain,
Weather,
then
we all
we
said.
can,
You can.
Had we had good weather, we would have, I think, contractor finished on time, we would have been on budget.
We still would have run into some different substrates, though,
Absolutely.
But probably not to this degree.
to this extent,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, there's bad weather on it just about every project, though.
yeah.
Well, this was excessive, though. This
I
was,
mean, I could see, okay, bad weather, substrates, whatever, might result in a 10 or 15 or 20% engineering cost overrun. But over 50%, I'm having a hard time grasping that.
What would you choose to do?
Well, I have only one choice, and that is when you call a vote, and that's to vote nay.
If we all voted nay, what would the next step be?
That's to say, staff and CTI need to sit down and hammer something out.
Has this been negotiated at all?
We've had discussions.
Yeah, no, I would not say negotiated. These are the invoices that were presented, thus presented to council as such.
I mean, this is a big enough deal that even mediation would be appropriate, in my opinion.
Yeah, so it comes down to, in my mind, it was one vote, that whether or not staff believes that they're appropriate, and we believe that what he is asking in overages is appropriate. And for me, at this point, I think I rely on staff at this point, because thank you for
Bye,
coming,
Chip.
Chip. And their recommendation as to whether or not we approve it or not. So I guess that's a direct question to the staff. Do you think we should approve or consider mediation?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer because I have before me the same thing you do, and I have
Right.
no method by which to question the number of hours that were spent on any given day or any given period, or the number of miles that were driven. I know that during this process, there was a great deal of work done in terms of just trying to figure out how to resolve problems. A lot of time spent in that effort that, had we not had those issues, wouldn't be necessary. Beyond that, I'm really not in a position to be able to say for sure what number of hours were spent and what is or isn't accurate.
Council, may I say, if you look at one of the first invoice, which was in June of last year, it was $13,000 or $14,375, and you'll see the breakdown on that. The engineering is my time, and I had 11 and a half hours. We had 167 hours from one of the inspectors, and the other people on here are field people that were on the job site. The next month, we had billing of 10,000. I had 12 hours. The rest of that is a little bit of administrative, 1 hour of administrative time. The rest are field people that were out on the job site monitoring the work and monitoring the progress of the work. If you'll notice, basically all of those, it's a heavily predominance of field time.
You know what, though? These are after the project was basically done. At least these invoices are dated then. These are times, the project was what you initially thought was done before we said, wait a second, I'm not sure we're done. It was done before the 4th of July.
We basically gave substantial completion for July 3rd last year. So this was an invoice. This first one was, the invoice was dated
June 10, with it due on July 5, but the second one is dated 7/08 after it's done. So I just wondered, the 10,211 in particular on that second invoice, if that has to do with engineering to correct what wasn't an adequately completed? Is this time that came in
the second
after
one,
that?
the dated in July the 6th, was work that was actually performed during the month of June.
Right, so it
Because
doesn't
of-
show it doesn't show when the work was done on here, it just shows the
Okay. Well, I can itemize that and tell you exactly what dates that occurred. But there's usually a lag period. We work, say, the month of May, and you would get an invoice in June for the services that were provided in May. So there is always a lag there.
But would it be normal, for instance, the one that's dated 8/12 and due 9/06 of 2019, which is a full 2 months, let's say that took place in July, would it be normal for this is the invoice number, does it have a number? It doesn't.
Well, it's invoice number 11.
Oh,
Is
there
that
it
the one
is,
you're
yeah.
looking at?
0311. Would it be normal to incur $4,000 worth of fees in the closeout of a project?
Yes, it
An
would.
additional,
There would be, there was field time as we were working on some of the final payment for the contractor and so forth.
would it, under a normal circumstances where you didn't have, the additional problems that took place earlier, would it be normal also for there to be enough draw left that this would keep it within the budget?
Yes.
So I think
Are
that's another,
are very, very close.
Yeah.
Yes.
so that's another part of looking at this whole thing.
And just, if I may, just to clarify one thing, that I did ask, and you indicated that none of this relates to the finish work that was done, the
That's correct.
grinding or anything like that.
That's what I was
None of-
questioning.
nothing
CTI
doing
has
that.
not invoiced the town for any services during the contractor.
So you're not going to?
No, we're not.
Okay, that's what I need, thank you. That helps.
Well, I wanted to bring up one thing, kind of a little background. We had expected to get our notice to proceed from TDOT probably 6 months prior to when we got it, but it took forever to get our notice to proceed. So once we got that, we felt like we had to get started at a time when Ron and I actually talked about might have been better to wait to start it because of the time of year. But we had a deadline, and it ended up being July 4th. And so we had to, you know, move forward, even though those rains were here and all that, and the contractor was trying to stay within that time of completion and our deadline. But that kind of, it got started late because we did not receive our notice to proceed when we had hoped to have a better.
Wonder what caused that holdup for 6 months? I
TDOT.
mean, like, that's
That's
just sort of
TDOT.
general, I mean, is there like were they like backlogged up, I mean, what's going on? Why would it, is that
It's-
typical?
It is typical, actually, it is typical, and I don't know why, I can't tell you why, we were waiting on TDOT to issue that notice to proceed, and we were ready to go, and it just got delayed to where it was a bad time of year that we thought maybe to start, but we had to anyway because we had a deadline.
Right.
And
Actually, we were ready to go to construction a year before, and we received a letter from TDOT that said, your advertisement for bid is approved. We took that to be authorization to advertise, so we did. 3 weeks later, someone in Nashville called and said, where's the project? I said, it's out for bid. Oh, no, you can't bid it yet. Said, we've got some more forms for you. So that delayed it, and we had everything ready. Then they came back and said, we need to do a brand-new NEPA reevaluation. And so that delayed us about 4 months. So it took up the entire spring of 2018. And then when we got ready to go to construction, concrete prices had just gone out the ceiling, and contractors were busy. So it was a terribly bad time to bid in terms of the calendar, but it was also a bad time to bid in terms of getting decent prices from contractor services. So there were just a lot of things working against the project.
All right, well, thank you for that extra information, Loretta, that helps, and I'm ready to vote. Anybody else, further discussion? If you wanna, I'd rather not pay it too, but I think it's the cost of doing it.
Only thing I wanted to just bring up, and we've kind of touched on it, is just how do we get to, like, I feel like this happens often where we're kind of in this situation where we're like, oh, we need more money, oops, and that adds up over time, and then we get to the budget, and then we have what we had this year. So I'm more concerned about how we got to this point, and like Bill said, it'd be one thing if it was a smaller amount of money, but this is a significant amount. So I don't know if anybody can speak to that, or, I mean,
Well, it wouldn't be theirs. I mean, it would be.
but I think as a council, that's part of our responsibility too, is to try to prevent these things from happening so that we're not in a position to be
Is
not
not-
paying someone for services or deciding, and it's just, it's a
Is not this
Difficult.
discussion?
Kind of a, I mean, it's a hard thing though, because like, the project's already going on, like, we are where we are. They've gotta mitigate or remediate the soil issue. It's like underwater over there. I mean, like, I don't know what the alternative is. I mean, I feel frustrated with that TDOT took 6 months because if you could have started that project back in April as opposed to November or whatever, you'd have those nice dry summer months. I mean, I'm not saying it was dry last year because it was torrential rains
But it
all
would've
off and
been
on
much
all
better.
year. So you're probably seeing this in a lot of other projects. I mean, is this a trend that in other projects you've been affiliated with that?
Actually, no, this is probably
This was just extraordinary?
probably the worst one. Certainly the first worst one that I've ever been involved with in terms of conditions and everything involved with it.
An answer to your hypothetical, though, is one of the ways we get involved is like the thing we went to last week with MTS. You get involved and you find out what's happening legislatively, and you push for your town, you push for the needs for your city, and there are some things that are happening with that. And so that's all part of making this better, and everyone is complaining.
And it's
All the
like
towns
the,
do.
you mean in the broad sense of like processes, like how things
Exactly.
are run, and what's efficient and what's not, and clearly there's some inefficiencies going on with.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a prime example. So maybe we need to, you know, at least say, write them a letter and say, you know, we had to pay this, there's nothing we can do about it now, but in the future, you know, maybe we need to work on trying to push these certifications through in a
Well,
timely manner.
There was a specific discussion about the trend away from state grants because of all of the effort and
Inefficiency.
work
Yeah.
that has to.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, once they found out, you know, okay, here's another option, here's how we can mitigate this, then you've gotta go back to TDOT and get all that approved, and it just bogs everything down, and people are walking away from
Right.
grant money because it's ultimately, the contractors bid it higher because they know the headaches and everything that's involved in it, it ends up costing you
Yeah.
more.
See, that's
I mean, that-
crazy. I mean, and this is like our infrastructure, you know, like statewide, and even just looking down and, like, in the big picture, it's our infrastructure in places is crumbling, and like even down in, you know, just small municipalities
Yeah.
are struggling. So, I mean, that's something that needs to be looked at. People need to be able to access those dollars if that's what they're there for. And if the
Yeah.
municipalities are avoiding it, then that's a problem.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're doing. I mean, this is part of that process. Is the people saying, I've had it and I'm
Yeah.
not gonna take it
And I mean, I
anymore.
don't, you know, I think, I don't see how we have a choice.
But it can
to
also
pay
hit
it now.
CTI contractors, just as, but wait a second, we put in the work and wanna get paid. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think we have to pay it. You know, it's not your fault.
let's, everybody prepared to vote?
Yep.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
We have one opposed. Just one opposed.
Council, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron.
Happy Thanksgiving.
See you on the next project.
He smirks as he walks away like, yeah, like that's gonna happen.
He didn't have a limp when he came in.
Mayor, while
Yes.
we're on that, may I address one other thing?
Yes, sir.
It's just an FYI for council, for the record. As we are moving into closing out this project, we figured out when they contacted us about payment, we use Geo Services for the third-party testing that's required on the project. And we got one or two invoices and we paid those, and then hadn't gotten any others and didn't really realize it, and they contacted us about payment. We're like, we never got any invoices. They had sent them to CTI, but hadn't copied us on it, as had been their practice, so we weren't aware of it. CTI didn't realize that we hadn't gotten them directly. This wasn't a contract for a set amount or anything like that. We just engaged them to do the testing services. Had it proceeded as normal, they would have just invoiced us for what we needed them to do in any given month, and we would have paid it, and that would have been it. Since we got several at one time, it is in excess of $10,000, only because we're paying multiples at once. But again, had we gotten the invoices each month as we went along the way, that wouldn't have been the case. So just for transparency and explanation, I just wanted to explain that's what's going on with this payment. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm so tempted to say Geotechnical Services needs to come in and tell us why they missed the mark on some of the substrate and defend that.
I don't
because-
think they did the original testing on that.
Okay.
This was during the project.
This was during the
project,
construction.
not prior to.
All right, next we have a resolution. This is a resolution authorizing the town manager to purchase one 2020 Ford F-150 pickup, Tennessee State Contract Number 64473 from Lonnie Cobb Ford, Henderson, Tennessee, for a total amount not to exceed $33,949 to be used by the Building Codes Department for the town of Signal Mountain. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So this, we assume, is in the,
It's in the budget.
it's in
This
the
is
vehicle
vehicle
replacement?
replacement fund
Yeah.
budget. It is a couple of $100 over budget. But we're fine in that fund. We've actually sold some surplus vehicles and have revenue in that fund, so we'll be fine on that. It's just, again, I think just over $200 over, something like that.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Carries 5-0. Next, we have a resolution to adopt the Town of Signal Mountain ADA Transition Plan for compliance with Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act. We've had copies of it. We talked about it last time. Sam put some changes in, pulled a few things out, and everybody's had time to take a look at it. Anybody have any questions?
No.
Do we hear a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion to approve, second. It's an extensive document that is the current version available on the website?
Sort of know.
Yeah.
I'll double check in the morning.
Anything, my concerns have been addressed. Anybody, if no one else had any other concerns or anything that you think we might have missed that we should have seen? Any surprises, Sam? Okay.
I believe everything's been addressed. Any concerns that you or anyone else brought up at the last meeting or at any other time, I believe have been addressed. But if I'm open, if anyone has any other questions or concerns.
Thank you,
Good.
Carol.
Good.
All right, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries 5-0. So we move on to ordinance, of which there are none. Board, commissions, committees, and reappointments. I do have one change that needs to be added to this. I talked with Robbie Henderson, and she no longer wishes to be on the Personnel Committee, so there's going to be one other opening there. And what we're doing tonight is not voting for people. This is just for us to get a chance to see if there's anyone that anyone sees on here that needs to be added, maybe to tell other people about it. And then we can approve, we don't even have to vote on this, actually.
No, not tonight.
They can have all of these resolutions for us at the next meeting, so.
Okay.
We should
When-
have a vacancy under the rec board. Mike Lane's not been a part of the board. It's highlighted already.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
I said there'll be a vacancy on the rec board because Mike Lane is not on the board.
Okay.
Michael Lane on the rec board, there'll be an opening. Mhm.
We, as is practice, each year we advertise for openings on all of the boards
Mhm.
because reappointment isn't automatic. That was done 10/21, and at this point, we've received no applications. So if council decides those that have asked to be reappointed will be, that then helps us narrow down where we actually will have openings and we need to actively recruit and get notices out for
Okay.
those positions being open.
All right, and everyone's been emailed?
Everyone got a letter initially. If we didn't get a response, such as Mr. Lane, then there's a follow-up email, and at this point, I think that's the only one we haven't gotten any response from, so
And-
everyone else has responded one way or the other.
In looking back through the contact information and who expires when and that sort of thing, I'm still down under Planning Commission. I'm not there, so that's a spot.
Right.
You don't want to do both?
That's your,
No.
when it says out to the side there, the one vacant seat,
Is that me?
that's you.
Good, okay,
That's your
perfect.
seat. The contact list and everything was what was most current with,
Got it.
All right, that's,
so I guess really the only question is if some direction that those that have answered yes, if those are good with all those, we'll
Yeah.
do the resolutions for those for the next meeting.
It's probably a reasonable time to ask also, does everyone want to continue to be the liaison for the board on which they are liaisoning?
And I'm not sure if we addressed that. I guess the assumption was that Cheryl, for the most part, picked up Bob's liaison position.
Yeah, and I never got a list of that.
No, I think it was just something we didn't think about at the time that kind of occurred to us.
Maybe we list and discuss those at the next meeting?
Okay.
Is that good?
Wasn't he
Yeah.
DRC and BZA? Well, I think that was it.
I
yeah.
think that's right.
That might help you.
All right, any other discussion about this?
Mm.
All right, so we move on to tentative agenda. We only have one more meeting this year, and it's December 9th. So we'll have the, this vote for the board seats.
Mhm.
Anybody have anything else to add? Might be an easy meeting.
That would be really nice.
Will we be, the few things that we have open, a lot of it having to do with water company, do we anticipate anything happening between now and December 9th?
Possibly. The engineers were finally able to meet. I spoke with Jerry from CTI today, so I'll be reaching out to Ron, see if we can sit down for another meeting now that the engineers have kind of gotten their
Okay.
heads together. So we'll see how that goes, and then if council does want to schedule a meeting. I am going to send out a request for a special meeting relative to the meter project, and we have a proposal that's pretty much wrapping up, so we should have it. I'd like to just sit down and address that specifically. The rep from the company, it's the organization that handles all of our tank maintenance and all of that. They also have a meter program that is a pretty interesting scenario. So even though he's from out of town, he's more than willing to do an evening meeting. So I'll send out a thing and see what availability might be like early part of December for that.
Good.
That's where we are for now.
Anybody else have anything to add? Any other business anyone wants to bring up? Going once? We are adjourned.
Wow.
Might have set a record right
That,
there.
I think, might have been, except for the one year, I think it was just me and Dan, it was the year of the national championship. Our meeting was like 7 minutes, and I was like, yes!